snapping them in front of your paint bottles?
Hey, it's John. I thought this might fall in between some of the different tutorials that I'm putting together for a Trench Crusade Kickstarter. I would do a quick little intermediate thing, just showing very quickly how I take something like a piece of corrugated iron, I suppose it's supposed to be. This is from an iron brew can. You can use obviously any kind of drinks can, and I've used my toothpaste tube squeezer. There's another video on how to do that, which I pinched the technique from my good friend Adam from Lead Will Walk the Earth. Check out his channel. But I thought, let's have a look at how we process this to make it look like cool corrugated tin or iron for your trench scenery, your backdrops, your plinths, all that good stuff. So I've got my bits of trench iron. This is what it's called now. I've got loads of bits because I had lots of drinks cans. I've been busy making those. I've washed them, mostly dried them. That doesn't really matter. Now, before we start, I'm just going to say, be really careful with this stuff. It's very sharp in its raw kind of state. I've already taken a chunk out of my knuckle with it. Just be careful, right? And you know, take responsibility. Don't you know, legislate against me, litigate against me. I don't think anyone's going to actually legislate against me for suggesting you this, but just be careful with it, right? It's really sharp. Let's go. So, stage one. Various companies produce various kind of washes and rust effects. I'm just going to use what I've got here. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I love these products. Mostly I get them because the shop down the road sells them, but they all work. So first of all, we've got some Vallejo wash effects for light colors and for rust effects. And I'm just gonna really kind of lazy way to do it. I'm sprinkling a little bit of this on. Comes in these handy bottles. Now, do you know what? I could, oh, there's my email pinging. That's nice. I could almost just leave that to dry, but I just want to run that all over, because what it's going to do is just take down the newness of it. I'm not trying to mix those colors together. I'm quite happy for them to sort of mix on the surface, and then I'm going to let that dry, and we'll come back when that's dry. Right, this is dry, and actually, do you know what? You could use that as is. That's worked really nicely. These kind of, I don't know what you want to call them, technical paints, whatever, these kind of advanced acrylics you can get now are so good. You know, they've got all these ingredients that control the sort of dry rate and make all these nice effects. I think you could totally use that, but let's go further. So I'm going to use some of these. Like, you can tell these are my actual paints because they're a complete state. Again, this isn't like a sponsored thing. I just think these are a really good thing to have in your arsenal. War Paints Fanatic from Army Painter, Fresh Rust and Dark Rust. I'm going to start with some Dark Rust. Now, excuse me, because my Dark Rust has nearly run out, so I'm going to do a really gross thing by jamming my paintbrush into the bottom of it to get some out. I'm not going to show you that, okay? We're going to edit that bit out, because if you care about brushes and things, that's not a nice thing to see. Oh, speaking of brushes, just use older brushes with your rust paints, because they've got particles in them that when they dry, the particles come to the fore to make the rust effect. That will hurt your brushes. Ta-da! Right, so I've got my little, on my palette there, I've got some of this paint. This is the Dark Rust, and this is what I do, right? I'm not saying this is the best technique, but it's what I do. And in some of my photographs, I've been kind of amazed how well it comes out. So I've got quite a lot of the paint on my brush. I'm going to go from the bottom. Rust seems to sort of form from edges, and I'm kind of dabbing away to just, I want these really cool, weird little wispy shapes that are quite detailed. I don't want it on in blobs. I want the edges to be kind of all crinkled and sort of fractal looking, right? Because the rust is a tiny thing, right? Rust. I'm going to go to the other end as well and sort of make these shapes that it looks like maybe water's run down at some point. or mud has caused the metal to rust, but it's got a kind of direction that it's bloomed in. Don't want it too regular. I've gone a bit regular with these, like dunk, 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 dunk. So you need to keep an eye on what you're applying. Now, I'm getting different sort of coverage because the paint is drying out on my, or running out on my brush, and that's good. I want some thicker, some thinner, and then now I'm almost exhausted. I'm just going to sort of scumble, we would call that in my painting days, just sort of a bit on like that, a bit rough and ready. Now, I'm going to go back in and recharge my brush. And in the center of these, in fact, I'm going to get some more paint out of my paint pot off screen because it's a gross procedure that no self-respecting painter should be using. I've got a really good dollop there. And in the middle of these areas, I'm going to just wipe on a good amount of this. Now, I'm not going to go mad with this. I just want a little clods of it, just in a couple of areas. And that will give me the heavy texture of the rust paint. But I don't want that all over. I mean, you could if you want to do some real special occasion mega rust, and hey, have at it. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going quite delicate. Right, and then we need to just let that dry. Okay, now that's dry. And you can see, again, we could just use it like that. That could go on scenery and look pretty cool. But something I found that works really nicely is a bit of the fresh rust paint on the top of it. Let's just get us a little bit to work with on my palette there. This one not being like already empty. I don't have to do anything grim with the brush. Go with our brush again. Now, I want to just go inside my bigger shapes. I've got a pretty well charged brush. I like these cheapo just craft brushes for this. You don't use your expensive miniature painting brushes or any kind of specialist brush. Just get some garbage brushes, because it just doesn't matter for this, and then you won't feel bad if you have to throw them away after a few goes around. Hey, we shouldn't be wasting things, but you know what I mean. You don't have to be precious about it. So I'm just dotting this around inside these big shapes to just kind of bring up that nice orangey rustiness. Now, for photos, this especially helps because we don't want things to look flat in our photos. So I'm just following around inside. If I sort of go over the lines, that really doesn't matter. So this is a bit more, in this area, it's a bit more sort of scraped and scumbly textured. So if I dot in some on top of that, that's a new kind of texture. The rougher dark color and then some dots on top, that's good. We can also smear some on if we want. I'm not going to do that on this. I don't feel like I've got space, but what I am going to do is just dot some around, some just little dots. Again, it's going to catch the eye a little bit. We want this corrugated tin to look tiny, you know. We want it to look like the scale of the miniatures, not like a piece of drinks can that's been corrugated in a toothpaste tube squeezer. We want it to look like actual corrugated iron. Now, I found if you do a couple of layers, you can almost work wet on wet. It doesn't. I haven't found any problems with that, and it dries very quickly. I'm just building up just to get a bit of depth of that orangey lighter color, and by building up that depth, you'll get a nice amount of the texture as it dries, and those sort of grains inside the paint come to the fore. I think we're going to stop there. Something I really like about, I'm just going to go right along the edge. I've just decided, having said I'm going to stop. Something I really like about making scenery is, it doesn't matter, does it? You know, it's just a bit of corrugated iron. It's not the end of the world if it goes wrong, because you can just cut another piece, crinkle it up. There we go, and have another go. And now I've been practicing this a little bit. Not a huge amount, I have to say. And you just sort of find ways to work it and make it more cool for your setups. Right, we'll let that dry. And we're all done, all dry. Remember, be careful with the edges of this, still sharp, just because it's got a bit of paint on it. But yeah, great stuff. And in future tutorials or videos, I will share a bit more about what we're going to do with this. We probably want to make loads of these if we're doing a batch. I've got lots of tin there corrugated up. We'll do loads and we'll make some stuff with it. Awesome. All right, and let's set up a shot. This is the World War Ruins backdrop book, which I tell you what will work great for trench stuff. It's not an official trench book, but it will work. I love my blocks of wood. Blocks of wood are just really handy, just offcuts from projects, and they just let me set stuff up the way, at the height I want, and I can go up or down easily. I get the book on a block so I can go up or down. And here we've got a bit of trench tin. This is the plinth that's in the tutorial on the Trench Crusade Kickstarter. So using the same stuff, we'll build up stuff as we go. So there it is, and there's our shot set up. We're going to want to either zoom in a bit or crop, but let's take some photos.